This is CNN Breaking News.
Good morning and happy Friday to you. I'm Carol Costello. Thank you so much for being with us. We begin this hour with breaking news. Friday prayers are now finished in most of the Muslim world, and as expected, new anti-American protests are flaring up. We have new pictures out of Yemen, where there have been conflicting reports from the U.S. Embassy. Security forces fired warning shots at a crowd of protesters as they marched to the embassy. Water cannons eventually chased them away. Now to Tripoli, Lebanon. And yes, there is a Tripoli, Lebanon. It was the crowds that chased away the government forces there. Protesters threw rocks and bottles. Today, as you know, the Pope is visiting Beirut, Lebanon. That's about 50 miles south of Tripoli, Lebanon. Now a dramatic new effort to tamp down some of the ugliest anti-American violence in the Arab world, and it comes at a critical time. In the past 24 hours, protests have swept across a massive region, 11 countries in all, from Morocco in the west to Iran in the east. But also new this morning, a startling development. Egypt's powerful religious group, the Muslim Brotherhood, has ordered nationwide demonstrations be canceled. Rioting outside the U.S. Embassy in Cairo has been some of the region's most violent, with more than 200 people injured. Our senior international correspondent, Ben Wiedemann, is in Cairo. So, Ben, how significant is this group's intervention?
Well, Carol, the decision by the Muslim Brotherhood to cancel the demonstrations that they were planning across the country, but not in the area of where we are, which is, in fact, right over there, that building with the dome on top is the American Embassy. But despite the cancellation, it really hasn't made much of a difference in the street. If we look, we just pan the camera down below, you can see these are demonstrators literally just around the block from the American Embassy, prevented from getting closer by a large concrete wall that was constructed this morning by the Egyptian security forces. And what we have now is the protesters are trying to sort of go via side streets to get closer to the embassy. Now, you can't tell at the moment, but the air is becoming quite thick with tear gas, which is sort of overcoming me at the moment. But that tear gas is basically the only thing that's stopping these demonstrators from getting closer to the American Embassy. Carol?
Are you all right, Ben? I'm going to let you go, Ben. Thank you so much. Ben Wiedemann reporting live from Cairo.
It's okay, Carol.
Are you sure? Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question, you're a good guy to continue.
Ahead. No problem.
The Egyptian government is in a tough place right now. The president came out a couple days ago and said, hey, look, Egypt's not exactly our ally anymore. Did the president's comments have anything to do with Egypt's tamping down or canceling some protests across the country?
Well, certainly the Muslim Brotherhood officials I spoke with yesterday, Carol, did seem to get the message that the American government takes very seriously the breach of the embassy on Wednesday night and the fact that they want to make sure that the Egyptian security forces properly guard the embassy. But there's sort of two different messages going on. In English, the message is very conciliatory. The Muslim Brotherhood and officials within the government expressing a desire for good relations with the United States. But at the same time, if you look on the Arabic website, if you go, for instance, to a Muslim Brotherhood rally I went to in a mosque on the other side of the Nile, the rhetoric is very different. There were people shouting, Obama, there are a million Osamas. It rhymes in Arabic. They were chanting against the United States, saying that it's a patron of terrorism. So the message in English, conciliatory. The message in Arabic to the street here in Egypt, quite to the contrary. Carol?
All right, Ben Wiedemann, we're going to let you go. Thanks for hanging in there. We appreciate it because I know you're very uncomfortable right now. Ben Wiedemann, thanks so much. We now know more about the Americans killed in the attack on the U.S. consulate in Libya. Tyrone Woods is a former Navy SEAL who was working as a private security guard for the government. For the last couple of years, he'd been protecting diplomatic personnel in hotspots from Central America to the Middle East. His mother says he died doing what he loved best.
Ty would not want to be seen as a hero. He would want to be seen as a guy on his team who did his job.
And did it well.
And did it well. Did it the best he could. Obviously, and unfortunately, and I'm sure I'm sure my son went down fighting. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I haven't been told, but I'm sure he went down fighting. I'm sure he did. And I just hope his last moments weren't painful.
Oh. Today, the remains of all the Americans are being returned to the United States. They include, from the left, Ambassador Christopher Stevens, Glenn Doherty in the middle, and State Department worker Sean Smith. Here are some of their tributes. A friend of Sean Smith tells us, quote, he had no desire for fame or recognition. He simply saw things that needed to be fixed and set about trying to fix them. His loss is all the more tragic because it was caused by forces he detested, those of hatred, intolerance, and ignorance. Glenn Doherty is another former SEAL providing diplomatic security. Like Ambassador Stevens, he viewed the mission in Libya as much more than just a job. And the men's siblings wanted to share their stories.
Glenn lived his life to the fullest. He was my brother, but if you ask his friends, he was their brother as well. We asked for privacy during this time as we grieve for our friend, my brother, our son, and our American hero.
He was doing what he always did, which was representing the United States in an exceptional manner. He was my big brother. So all the things that you typically, as a little brother, all that guidance, just being best friends, that's what I'll miss the most.
A U.S. government source said the attack that killed those Americans may have been planned and the protest may have been a diversion. But regardless, the man responsible for making that anti-Islamic film is coming under intense scrutiny. Miguel Martez has been looking into the filmmaker's past.
He's the shadowy maker of a low-budget anti-Islamic film who has a criminal past and many aliases. Clearly someone who doesn't want to be found, and as we discovered, for good reason. In 1997, Basil, his real name, Nakula Basili Nakula, spent a year in prison, convicted of intent to manufacture methamphetamine. In 2010, he spent another year, this time in federal prison, for fraud.
These are just some of the documents for criminal cases against Sam Basil or Nakula Basili Nakula. It is clear by going through these that investigators had a hard time tracking him down as well. The guy had several addresses, many social security numbers, and lots of names.
Court documents show he used at least 17 different names, including Sam Basil, Kurt Bag Difrat, PJ Tobacco, and Thomas Tanis.
Anyone having anything to do with Sam Basil is scared to death right now across Los Angeles. This is a neighborhood in Long Beach. A man who lives here says that Nakula Basili used his address to get credit cards and conduct some of the fraudulent activity that he carried out. He found out about it, called the police, and hasn't seen him since.
Numbers associated with Basil's many identities turned up nothing.
The number you dialed is not a working number.
Even anti-Islamic activists who worked with him say they were never exactly sure who he was.
Sam is not his real name. I knew that.
The same is even true for the actors in his movie.
He told me he was from Israel today. He told me he was going to show the movie in Egypt. And either I assumed he was from Egypt or
he led you to believe he was Egyptian.
Yes, because that's what I believed.
Well, this is the best address we have for Sam Basil or Nakula Basili, whatever you want to call him. You can see all of the media is camped out here. We're going to try one more time to talk to him. Mr. Basil, Mr. Nakula. It's Miguel Marquez with CNN.
This house, the center of an intense search for answers from a man who has many questions hanging over his head.
Now, we've also been able to confirm one other thing, that this is a man who represented himself as Israeli-American or as a Jewish Israeli-American. He told cast and crew members that. We spoke to the bishop of the Coptic Christian church he goes to here, and also to friends of his here. He is Egyptian, and he is Coptic Christian, and he is laying very low. Carol?
It's just, I watched this trailer on YouTube, and it's just so bad and cheesy and doesn't make much sense. Has it ever been shown anywhere else? besides YouTube.
It is absolutely, yeah, it's ridiculous, this thing. I mean, to watch it is absolutely ridiculous. But it apparently did show under yet a third name, The Innocence of Bin Laden, in a movie theater, literally 2 blocks from where I'm standing at Vine Theater here in Hollywood back this summer, we believe in June. They may have done that, some version of it. They may have done that for copyright reasons. The actors in the film also say they believe they were never invited to a screening of it. Very few people, if anybody, showed up to that screening. And the one actor I talked to said that Sam now says, or whatever his name is, says that the film is not finished but should run about 2 hours. So some version of it has aired or been in a theater, but I don't think the final version has been made yet. Carol?
Miguel Marquez reporting live for us from Los Angeles. The Values Voters Summit kicks off in Washington, D.C. today. Social conservatives are starting to rally around Mitt Romney, but can they win the election for him?